Hello everyone, I am Dr. Ankita Jain, periodontist and implantologist. Once again, before you presenting the next part of the gingival recession classification. It is the final part, and before beginning with today's video, I shall introduce once again to the channel. My channel is Your Dental Tutor, in which you will be getting notes in a very simplified form for the different dental topics. These notes are in the form of flowcharts, diagrams, self-explanatory diagrams so that you can easily reproduce them in the examinations as it is. So be on the channel and keep learning. Let's begin the third part of the gingival recession classification. It is the final part and it contains the latest classification proposed in the field of periodontology. We have covered in the first two videos of gingival recession classification 12 types of classifications. Now in today's video we will be covering the latest two classifications which were proposed in 2018 and 2020 respectively. So let's begin with the classifications without wasting much time. So the 13th classification is given by Nagappa and team in 2018. Basically, they have tried to overcome the limitations of Miller's classification. And the main basis for their classification is Miller's classification only. They have actually included the facial surfaces of maxillary teeth, facial and lingual surfaces of mandibular teeth, and interdental papillar recession also, which was not covered in the Miller's classification. In the Miller's classification, they have covered only the classification for the buccal surface of the teeth, but not for all other aspects of the teeth. So Nagappa and team have included the other aspects too. So they have proposed 4 classes with the subdivisions A and B. So grossly there are 4 classes, that is class 1, class 2, class 3 and class 4. These classes are divided on the basis of the position of the gingival margin from the CJ. So in class 1, the apical shift in the crest of marginal gingiva 1 to 2 mm from the CJ. So when the gingival margin is located 1 to 2 mm away from the CJ, then it would be categorized in class 1 according to this classification. It is further subdivided on the basis of interproximal tissue loss. So it is said to be in the class 1A if there is no interproximal tissue loss present clinically, and 1B when there is interproximal tissue loss but this loss is coronal to the interproximal CJ clinically. So here you can see that this is the interproximal CJ point basically, and this is the gingival margin. Okay, so it is coronal to the interproximal CJ. So that is always class 1A and class 1B. Next we move on to the class 2. Now again here the crest of marginal gingiva lies greater than 2 mm but less than 3 mm away from CJ. Again it has been further subclassified into 2A and 2B. 2A, the interproximal tissue loss is not present clinically, and 2B, interproximal tissue loss is present but it is coronal to the interproximal CJ clinically. That means in the subclassification, the class 2 is similar to that of class 1. Only difference is here the marginal gingiva is more than 2 mm or less than 3 mm from the CJ. Next we come on to the class 3. Here class 3 means apical shift in the crest of marginal gingiva more than 3 mm from the CJ. Okay, so the distance between the CJ to the gingival margin is more than 3 mm. It has been further classified on the basis of interproximal tissue loss as usual, that is 3A and 3B. In 3A, without any interproximal tissue loss as you can see in this figure, and in 3B with interproximal tissue loss, but now this time this tissue loss is not coronal, it should be apical to the interproximal CJ clinically. as you can see in this figure. Okay. Next we move on to the class 4. It is similar to that of class 3. That is, apical shift in the crest of marginal gingiva is greater than 3 mm from the CJ. But the only condition which is different is that there is severe malposed tooth, as you can see in this figure. It is further subclassified into 4A and 4B. 4A without any interproximal tissue loss clinically, as we can see here, there is no interproximal tissue loss. And in 4B with interproximal tissue loss apical to the interproximal CJ clinically. So we can see here that here interproximal tissue loss is more than that of the interproximal CJ. Okay, so that is how this has been classified. Now there are certain limitations of this classification also. It is difficult to classify the gingival recession on the basis of this classification if there is undetectable or missing CEJ, because the whole classification is based on the CEJ. Okay, CEJ is the major landmark in this classification. So the situations like in case of restoration, abrasion and abfraction, it is difficult to determine the position of the CJ and thereby difficult to mention the severity of the gingival recession. The second limitation is prognosis for root coverage procedure is not mentioned according to this classification. These two limitations are given by basically author itself, and the third limitation in my opinion is that they haven't mentioned anything about the palatal gingival recession. So these are the limitations of this particular classification. This is the last and the latest classification which has been proposed in 2020, rather in August 2020 I would say, and this classification has limited itself to the non-proximal gingival recession defects, that is recession present on the lingual and the buccal surfaces of the teeth. It has considered the two components. First is establishment of the gingival recession defect type and the assessment of the gingival biotype. So till date we have got lot of evidences that gingival biotype is also the one of the major factors for the cause of gingival recession. So gingival biotype is also considered in this classification. They have classified the gingival recession defect into three categories, that is GRD1, GRD2 and GRD3. According to GRD1, the buccal or lingual gingival recession defect in absence of adjacent interproximal attachment and bone loss. Now, one more thing I would like to mention over here, that GRD, establishment of GRD, that is gingival recession defect, has been done on the basis of the three things. First is buccal or lingual attachment loss, clinical attachment level. Second is interproximal attachment, and third is bone loss. Okay, so in GRD1 basically buccal or lingual gingival recession defect in the absence of adjacent interproximal attachment or bone loss. That means the recession is present only at the buccal aspect and there is no loss of adjacent gingival interproximal tissue, okay, or adjacent bone loss. So there is no bone loss, no interproximal attachment loss. Now in GRD2 and GRD3 they have considered the two major things for the classification, that is the most apical midfacial attachment level and the interproximal bone level. Okay, the relative position of these two landmarks has been considered for GRD2 and GRD3. Now midfacial attachment level means this part, if you will see in the figure, this part will be called as the midfacial attachment level, and the bone level will be seen in the radiograph. Okay, so likewise in GRD2 the buccal or the lingual gingival recession defect with adjacent interproximal attachment and bone loss. Okay, So here that is for sure that the gingival recession is also there and interproximal and bone loss is also there. But the condition in GRD2 is that thus this midlingual and mid-buccal clinical attachment level is apical to the interproximal bone level. As you can see in GRD2 here, this is apical to the interproximal bone level. Okay, this portion midfacial attachment is apical to the bone level. So that is what is the case of GRD2. In GRD3, it's just opposite. That is, the buccal or lingual gingival recession defect with adjacent interproximal attachment and bone loss. Here also there will be attachment and bone loss for sure, but the mid-buccal or mid-lingual clinical attachment level is at the same height or coronal to the interproximal bone level. So you can see here this part. This is interproximal tissue level. Interproximal bone level is this part. And the midfacial clinical attachment level is this. So this part is basically coronal to the bone loss. Okay, so it is at the same height or coronal to the interproximal bone level. So that is how they have established the gingival recession defect. Okay. Next is the assessment of the gingival phenotype. Now, under gingival phenotype, they have considered the two components, that is width of attached gingiva and gingival thickness, which is measured at approximately 1 mm apical to the gingival margin. So, from 1 mm apical to the gingival margin, you have to measure the gingival thickness. They haven't mentioned any particular method. In fact, they have suggested that any of the methods you can apply for measurement of gingival thickness. But the only point is this thickness should be measured 1 mm apical to the gingival margin. Now, attached gingiva can be classified as adequate if it is greater than 1 mm or inadequate if it is less than 1 mm. And gingival thickness is categorized as thick if it is greater than 1 mm or thin if it is less than 1 mm. Okay, so likewise the gingival phenotype is established on the basis of width of attached gingiva and the gingival thickness. Now, when you have measured these two components, then you have to classify the recession into subtype A, in which there will be presence of greater than 1 mm of attached gingiva and more than 1 mm of gingival thickness. Subtype B would be said when there will be presence of greater than 1 mm of attached gingiva but less than 1 mm of gingival thickness. And subtype C is given to the particular recession if attached gingiva is less than 1 mm and independent of any gingival thickness. Okay, so here with the help of figure they have tried to categorize the gingival recession on the basis of the gingival biotype. So for example, in the first figure there is no gingival recession defect. In the second figure this is subtype A. Why? Because there is more than 1 mm of attached gingiva and the thickness is more than 1 mm. Subtype B, when there is more than 1 mm of attached gingiva but the thickness is less than 1 mm. And here the attached gingiva is less than 1 mm. This attached gingiva is less than 1 mm. Okay. So that is how it has been categorized. They have given the clinical pictures also of this subtype. The first picture shows that there is no gingival recession defect. In subtype A, we can see that this attached gingiva is more than 1 mm and here the thickness is also more than 1 mm. In subtype B, we can see that attached gingiva is more than 1 mm but thickness is less than 1 mm. And here the attached gingiva is less than 1 mm and thickness irrespective of gingival thickness we have to see in subtype C. Okay, so that is how it's about the gingival phenotype. So authors have given the therapeutic application of the proposed classification. Okay, they have actually proposed the different surgical procedures of the root coverage for different combination of the gingival recession defect and the gingival biotype. For example, in GRD1, they have said that complete root coverage can be anticipated. That means complete root coverage can be expected. But with the GRD1, when present in combination of subtype A of the gingival biotype, where there is presence of more than 1 mm of attached gingiva and gingival thickness, then the primary option should be undertaken is coronally advanced or laterally positioned flap procedure. Alternatively, we can go for bilaminar procedure. In GRD1, again complete root coverage is anticipated, but with subtype B of the gingival biotype, the primary option is bilaminar procedure and alternatively laterally positioned flap. The combination of GRD1 and subtype C, that is attached gingiva is less than 1 mm independent of gingival thickness. Here the primary option is free graft procedure, alternatively bilaminar procedure using a tunnel approach or laterally positioned flap. In GRD2, they have said partial root coverage is anticipated, okay, and with different combination of the biotype, we have the same option as that of GRD1 with different biotype. In GRD3, they have said that no root coverage is anticipated. You cannot expect root coverage in these cases. And in combination of different subtypes, they have proposed different alternatives of treatment. Like in first case, that is GRD3 with subtype A, mucogingival surgery for root coverage is not recommended. Okay. GRD3 with subtype B, gingival thickness augmentation using a bilaminar procedure is indicated. GRD3 with subtype C, attached gingiva augmentation using a free graft procedure should be encouraged in such cases. So that is how they have actually given the options of surgical procedures for different combination of the gingival recession defect and gingival biotype. Different operators can use different technique according to their expertise and according to the patient factors, surgical factors, and the various other prognostic factors which are responsible for the prognosis of recession coverage. So this is just for giving an idea that this classification can also be used for therapeutic application. So that is all about this classification. If you have any doubt, you can ask me in the comment section. It is little typical but easy to understand if once understood. Okay. And these are the references of this particular video. The first part and the second part of the classification of gingival recession has been already taken in previous 2 videos, and all the 3 parts will make the topic complete. There are various other classifications present onto the channel regarding in relation to gingival enlargement and furcation involvement. So here we complete the periodontal classification series, in which the collection of classifications related to the different topics were taken. At last, I would like to acknowledge for this particular topic Dr. Achi Joshi, who has helped me a lot in the collection of the matter and suggested me to take this topic, as this is a unique collection which will help you to get all the classifications in the very simplified form at one platform. So go through those classifications also. Soon we will be taking the core topics and core concepts of the periodontology. Hope these are useful to you, and be on the channel if you have any doubts, or if you want any topics in particular, or you want the related articles, then you can mail me on my email ID, or you can leave your suggestions in the comment section. Till then, keep reading and keep growing. Thank you.